Good morning, or afternoon, almost afternoon.
I know. And I know lunch is on the way, but this is a session that I think is near and dear, not only because Nina and I are work group chairs for the broker advisory work group, but also almost everything that we do starts with the broker, right? And one of the ideas behind broker advisory is to get some of that connection, get some of that interaction, and also, discover ways that maybe there's disconnect. So Sam is right. We struggle sometimes to get that local broker voice, right? We've had some really great guests on stage the last couple of RESOs that really bring us that national perspective or even international perspective, where we can see a disconnect in a large organization that maybe deals with a lot of data, a lot of movement, a lot of tools. But what we don't always get is that local broker who really makes up a bulk of the industry. Usually the feedback we get from that is a vendor. So we're excited that we have a small broker and a vendor that interacts with that today. So I'm actually going to ask Chad and Nick to come up on stage. We'll get them introduced and we'll do a quick chat. So come on up, guys. So maybe to get started, I'll give you both a couple minutes to introduce yourself. Tell us how you got into the real estate space and what you do. So Chad, why don't we start with you?
Perfect. My name is Chad Nall. I'm a broker owner of Suburban Spaces here in San Antonio. And I got into the business, this is my 20th year, and I started, had a family friend that was a broker. He was always very interesting. And my mom got in the business for a short bit, and I got a bug. So at 18, I decided I wanted to get my license, but I was too young, so I went and got my degree, worked in the corporate world for a while, and then got my license in 2004, and opened my brokerage in 2010.
Nice. And how many agents do you have in your brokerage?
There's 14 right now.
14? Awesome. All right, Nick, how about you?
All right, I'm Nick Dosev. I work at SkySlope. I lead our data and integrations team. SkySlope serves over 3,700 brokerages, over 10 organized real estate providers around the country and Canada, and over 650,000 real estate professionals. So we have quite a bit of breadth, and I'm new to the real estate industry compared to some of you. I've only been in it for 3 to 4 years. In other tech sectors, that's mature, but here obviously I'm learning a lot. So thank you all for all the feedback and comments. Excited to talk about small brokerages today.
Awesome.
Amazing. So I know Jeff earlier mentioned that, we've often had large broker perspectives or even international brokers. And so we're really lucky to have you here with us today. And I think I'd like you to kind of talk a little bit about how you leverage technology just for your consumers and for your agents. And then I'll follow that up with an MLS question.
Okay, great. So when they first called me and asked me to do this, it was interesting because I was like, I'm just a small brokerage. I mean, I'm sure you don't really want my perspective. And they're like, actually, we want your perspective. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am a producing broker as well. So I'm always looking at the MLS and the data and kind of how that's being used with our consumers and also with my agents. The biggest thing that we probably use is because we are small, we leverage the MLS and all the resources that come with that. Probably 80% of everything we do. Outside of that is our CRM, and we like to keep our relationship stuff kind of separate of that, and that's kind of how we segregate our business.
So out of that 80%, in terms of, you're saying most of that is MLS driven, and that's what your MLS is providing for all of your agents and the consumer. So search functionality, all of that is coming directly from the MLS.
That is correct. And then we rely a lot on the showing services that's connected to that as well. A lot of the maps and layers that we utilize for research to provide to our clients. So that's, when I say the MLS, it's not just the data numbers, it's the third party information as well.
And I think you kind of tipped us off a little bit there, but you mentioned CRM really you see as more of a broker solution rather than an MLS solution. Are there any other tools that you've ever considered that you might say, hey, this really needs to be broker versus MLS?
I mean, the CRM, anything that's client direct relationship, I think we like to keep on our own. We're fine with transaction management. We actually keep on our own, but that's just my own personal preference. I'm not saying that we wouldn't integrate that into an MLS platform. It's just right now that's how we utilize it.
Fantastic. All right. So Nick, your company provides a lot of solutions in the marketplace, and we were chatting a little bit. What is the difference that standards make when you come into a marketplace and you're trying to provide a product to somebody like Chad along the way? How does that affect you?
Yeah, as a partner to both the broker and MLSs, we see ourselves as a conduit of value. And in order to be a conduit, we need to plug into both systems. From a broker's perspective, we serve about 60% or so of our broker user base is small and medium-sized brokerages. So what we see there is, a lot of white glove onboarding, setting things up. So we do a great job there, and there's not a whole lot of variability. It's a plug and play. However, when it gets to integrating with MLSs and associations at times, that really requires a lot of project management, understanding the data mapping, and making sure that we do everything and anything to serve the right information to the brokers. That's where standards play a huge role. In order for us to do that, we need to make sure that fields are pre-mapped, understanding the structures, the dictionary, making sure that standards are followed to the utmost integration possible, or standards of integration possible, is really important. And what that does for us and for the broker is it really saves cost. It allows us to spend our time on deriving more value, building more software, more solutions to problems, rather than spending our time on project management and integrations. And the places in Canada and the US, specifically in Florida, in California, where we've done that, where standards are prevalent, it's been tremendous.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so, in one of our prep calls, it came up in conversation about how a lot of markets don't have the same threshold of standards, and I'm wondering what kind of challenges that brings to you and your team and to your broker members.
Yeah, I'm not going to name specific MLSs, but like I said, we've worked with quite a few at this point, and we definitely have experience with areas where, pretty major MLSs have great standards, have integrations with API vendors in addition to being very compliant to RESO standards, and others that are still using RETS feeds and custom naming conventions. And I can tell you with certainty that not only our engineers, not only our project managers, but everyone we work with downstream to the agent that uses our software can tell the difference. And these standards are what drives that consistency, that user experience, and the speed at which we can deliver value. The other thing that we're consistently seeing is that when standards are followed, we get a lot more buy-in within the area or organization, and we see agent adoption be significantly higher as well.
Excellent. And then, Chad, for you, you said you use MLS quite a bit in terms of product, and what I'm wondering is, what do you see that's missing from the data in the MLS?
From the data, the one thing that, as we were preparing for this, the one thing I wanted to point out to other MLSs and people that are doing the technology is, in San Antonio, we have kind of a unique structure. We have a very strong rental market, and so I would encourage that if you have, or if there's markets out there with rentals, that somehow they're incorporating those, because it's a huge part of our business. We do residential sales, and we also do property management. So it's huge for us. So I wanted to kind of make sure that that's brought to the table. As far as what's missing, I don't know if there's any technology specifically. The thing that we're seeing in the market is texting capability. I know some people are offering that, but we don't currently have it, and so there's so much texting happening with our clients. And the one thing that we're finding, the engagement with those clients, we like to keep that relationship. So they're getting potentially a message from us, from the MLS, and then they go out and they take that address and they go to a third-party site, and they are researching there, and then they're coming back to us. Luckily, they're coming back to us, but there's always that fear of, what do they get out there? What if they look at another place and then they reach somebody else? So I think we'd like to see technology that would keep them there on our platform.
Yeah, so Nick, follow up with that question because, we mentioned compliance a little bit and kind of robust data and data standards. And tell me how that helps power your product and empower your brokers.
Absolutely. Compliance, from our perspective, obviously helps us, again, with the standards I talked about, passing the value down, being the conduit of value between the MLS and associations and brokerages. But at the core of it, it's really a risk mitigation strategy, right? Having the ability to comply with the proper processes, procedures, data compliance policies, the different data requirements that come through in terms of access, specific data certifications, et cetera. Where compliance is really assisting us is in two major ways. On the technical side of things, again, it speeds everything up. We check and test ourselves, and therefore make sure that every future project, every future integration with a compliant partner happens that much faster. And we're learning as we go, right? Compliance and standardization is not the only thing that matters. Obviously, project management and partnership is super valuable, so working closely with all of you is super helpful, but that is what allows us to move quickly. And on the other hand, it also allows us to focus on other compliance components and risk mitigation, such as bias and anti-discrimination compliance and other components that help us focus on what the agent's dealing with day to day, what their clients dealing with day to day, and making sure we focus on those components and those fields that actually move the needle, rather than just thinking about the technology and the ones and zeros, which most of us are thinking about, but doesn't necessarily hit the agent in their day to day.
So what you're saying is really the standard helps you innovate faster and create more products for the broker members that need it.
100%, yep.
Oh, it's me.
It's you.
Okay, so for Chad, we've heard that there are challenges for brokerages who cover multiple regions. And as a small broker, what does data sharing mean for you, if anything at all?
It does. So I think I would say I support it. Just in our local market, again, that's what I can speak to. We have probably 4 or 5 different MLSs. And so me as a broker, I've got to have access to those MLSs, and then the agents have to pay for that. If we had a data share and could share that information and work in those markets, because we're already working in those markets, but we're not sharing that information. So if we could share that information, it would be more sales for my people. It'd be easier for us to be on a standardized platform, and also the fees would probably be less as well. And the data would all be the same. Like right now when I send it to my client, I say, hey, you're going to get one from this MLS and you're going to get one from this, and then reports are going to look completely different. So now they have to get familiar with 2 reports as well. Yeah.
And I guess next same topic, like when it comes to data share, we've heard a little bit from Chad about how it affects the local broker on the ground, but you cover large areas, you support a lot of people. Like how does a robust data share maybe help with the products that you're trying to build or the services that you're trying to offer?
Yeah, great question. Top of mind, it reduces duplication. We know that when data shares don't happen and you have walled gardens, that what occurs is multiple different listings, even though they're the same property, being created, being managed, oftentimes not being updated. So we talked about analytics earlier in terms of compliance analytics. From a reporting perspective, both to the broker and for the MLS, that creates huge data issues and gaps, and many of you know this. In addition, what we're also seeing is data shares really encourage closer collaboration in different areas. And because that closer collaboration, as a vendor, when we come in, we integrate faster. We don't have to go to 2 or 3 or 4 different organizations, talk to them individually, go through the same exact process. But also, those data share organizations are also more aligned politically and ideologically. So we don't have to convince them that something is valuable or not, or vice versa. They don't have to tell us 5 times what's really important. So that's where we've really seen a ton of value from data shares.
Can I add a point on that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something that made me think of it is it actually is a disservice to the buyer and the seller both. And because if there's somebody putting it in one and not the other, and they're in the same market, so the buyer's missing it, the agent's missing it for their client, and then the seller's not getting maybe the exposure they should be getting on their listing as well. So
It's a great point.
I think that's an important part. I mean, this whole business was built in territories and associations and MLSs, right? And the world has changed from that. So, and there's some that embrace it and some that, that's not a road that they desire to go down. But we've heard a lot of good things about data share from the stage today, prior to us. And this next question is kind of near and dear to me because I'm in a market with a robust data share and a good partner on the other side. But there's sometimes things that you don't know about until you get into a data share. There's things that you break that you didn't know you were going to break. So maybe, Nick, can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you might hit in a market with a data share?
Yeah, on the flip side of what I was talking about earlier, that value of being able to have monolith in terms of decision making and data access also creates slowdowns. When we have specific, unique new field requirements, when the market changes, and obviously all of us have gone through all the COVID changes over the past few years, every little shift in demand requires some sort of adjustment, and when you have multiple parties involved in that data share, that takes a long time. With that said, it's still extremely valuable, and it still speeds up innovation quite a bit. So I definitely am I'm a proponent of it, and I think it's been super helpful. We're seeing levels of adoption in data share markets that are upwards of 70% for some of our products, like our Forms product. So it's been awesome.
See what happened?
That's a client calling.
No.
Someone important, hopefully.
No, I turned it off and its alarm still come through. Sorry. Apologize.
You know what, actually, I'm going to enter, I promised them I wouldn't do anything ad lib on stage, but the life of a small broker.
Yeah.
Just because, by the way, how many brokers do we have in the room? How many recovering brokers do we have in the room? A couple of you guys. Like, it took me a year on the MLS side before I quit twitching every time my phone rang. So, just curious, life of a small broker, because most of, everybody in here is in tech side and that. I mean, what is your day-to-day like?
My day-to-day, well, it's usually 6 or 7 days a week. It starts somewhere around 6:30 or 7, and it goes till 8 or 9, and that's usually in the office or on the road. And then I'll take calls from agents till 9 o'clock usually.
And I think just from a personal standpoint, coming in an organization now that builds some of our own product, having that thought process on, gee, maybe I can't do an update at 8 o'clock at night because those agents are still working, right? I can't bring down a forms program. I can't bring down a search, right? Because I'm disrupting how they make their living. So,
and that's even more true for the people who are maybe even part-time agents. So they're working during the day or they're taking care of kids, and then in the evening they're working. I mean, I get emails from agents late at night, and so yeah, that's a big impact to them.
Absolutely.
So Chad, there's and Nick too, there's an entire room full of people who either build or provide products. And I'm just wondering, from a small broker perspective, what's the biggest technology disconnect that you see working with buyers and sellers as it relates to technology?
And it goes back to what I mentioned before. For us, is we are the source of the data, and we just want to keep our relationships as close to us as we can, and having more products and more information in a good, I wouldn't want to say layout, but a good format that's usable both for the agent and the consumer is probably first and foremost.
Yeah, one of the biggest disconnects is all of this work we're talking about here, whether it's standards, whether it's data sharing, all that's behind the scenes. And the client doesn't understand that. The agent doesn't necessarily care about it when they're trying to, do the best possible job they can for their client. So it's very important for us to do things efficiently, quickly, and communicate. So I think that's really the biggest disconnect, I think. And we're working very closely with many of you to close the gap.
Fantastic. I think we've had this conversation from stage before. There's a lot of you in the audience as vendors or MLSs that have really helped carry the water for the broker advisory group, but often sometimes that's filtered down a little bit. Anytime that we can have a chance to interact with somebody that's on the street every day is really important. So I would make the plea that I make every time is that, adopt a broker, help get a broker to us for the broker advisory. We'd love to see all of you there, but we also...
We'll call them. Tell us who's good in your market. We'll call them.
Absolutely. One of the things, if you haven't met Nina yet, and that I love about Nina is, as a broker, she is not afraid to go grab them and stick them in a corner and basically, make them promise that they're going to come be part of our group. So
watch out, Chad. that's the message you're getting from that.
So with that said, we do meet every 2 months, usually virtually. We have a session at both the spring and the fall session. So I really appreciate your guys' time here. I do think we have 1 or 2 minutes. I could either take some questions or we could get you all on your way to lunch early. So any questions from the crowd? Nope, fantastic. Well, enjoy lunch. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.